keto friends. Are you ready to get a little twisted? Hi, I'm Carolyn from All Day I Dream About Food, and today we're making some keto cinnamon twists. This is actually one of the first recipes I ever made using keto fathead dough. I had so much fun playing around with this flexible, versatile dough, and I filled it with some cinnamon filling and twisted it up into sweet little breadsticks. The first thing we're going to do is whisk together all of our dry ingredients. This version of fathead dough uses both almond flour and coconut flour. So I have here half a cup of almond flour, and I'm adding a quarter cup of coconut flour. And because this is a sweet dough, we're going to add some sweetener. So I'm adding a quarter cup of powdered swerve. And then to help it rise a little, we're going to add 1 teaspoon of baking powder. And we'll whisk that all up and get it ready before we start melting our mozzarella. This is 6 ounces of shredded mozzarella. And for fathead dough, it's typically recommended that you use pre-shredded mozzarella. It does have a little starch, which actually helps your dough, but it's not enough to raise the carb count too much. For my version, I add a quarter cup of butter. And because I'm going to melt them together, I like to chop the butter up into smaller pieces so it melts faster and more evenly. Now I'm just going to melt these together in my microwave, but you can also do it in a pan on the stove. So you can see here that everything is nicely melted, and this is where you need to work a little quickly. You can stir it together, and then you want to add your dry ingredients, 1 egg, and half a teaspoon of vanilla extract. You're just going to break up your egg and start kneading everything together with a rubber spatula. And I just like to basically knead it up against the side of the bowl and the bottom of the bowl, using my rubber spatula to really work everything in together. You're still going to have some streaks of cheese, but then you're going to turn it out onto a surface and knead it until it's nice and uniform. So that's looking pretty good. It's holding together in one big ball. I like to use a silicone mat like this one, a nice big one, for rolling out my fathead dough. You can use parchment, it works just as well, but it tends to slide around your counter as you're rolling it out. Okay, so we will transfer our fathead dough to our silicone mat, and we'll just work it and knead it with our hands until it's nice and uniform. And if it's a little too sticky, and mine seems to be right now, you can always add a little more almond flour. So just a little at a time, sprinkle it on and work it in. So that looks a little bit better now. It's a little bit drier, doesn't stick to my hands as much. So now I'm going to roll it out into a 10 by 10 square. You need to cover it with another piece of parchment paper, or you can use wax paper. You just want to roll it out in every direction until it's pretty thin. And if you've ever rolled out dough, you know it's almost impossible to get it into a perfect square, which is fine. What you just want to do is kind of square it off as you're working with it. Next, we're going to prepare our cinnamon filling. I'm going to use 1 tablespoon of brown swerve and 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. And you want to break those up and whisk them together. Then we're going to take our dough and we're going to brush it with 1 tablespoon of melted butter. Now we take our filling and we're going to sprinkle about 2/3 of it over our dough, making sure to get all the way to the edges. Now comes the fun part. We're going to fold our dough over, and I recommend getting something underneath it a little to loosen it as you do this so that it doesn't tear. We're going to fold it right over in half and kind of press it down and press it together. Next, you're going to take a sharp knife, or I like to use a pizza wheel, and you're going to cut your dough into 10 even strips, as evenly as you can. I'm not always very good at that. Each strip will be about 1 inch wide. And once you have them cut up, you're just going to take each one, you're going to gently twist them in 2 different directions, right on the mat, until you have a little twist there. It may tear a bit, that's okay. You can just kind of patch it back together a little. And you want to space them out nicely around your baking mat. Once you have them all twisted up, you're going to brush them with a little additional melted butter, and you're going to sprinkle on your remaining topping. And when they're all set to go, you're going to put them in a 350-degree oven for about 15 minutes. Now the cinnamon twists are out of the oven, and I've let them cool for about 10 to 15 minutes. They're very soft when they come out, so you want them to firm up a little. And you can see here, they're nice and golden brown. Now the final step is to make a little vanilla drizzle for them. Makes them a little more like cinnamon rolls. So here I have 2 teaspoons of powdered sweetener, and I'm going to add just a touch of vanilla. So this is a 1/4 teaspoon. And finally, you want just enough water to make it a drizzling consistency. So that can be anywhere between 1/2 teaspoon and a full teaspoon. You just want to whisk it in until you have something you want to drizzle over your cinnamon twists. And now we can take our little drizzle and just drizzle it on top of our cinnamon twists. And now, my friends, you have a delicious keto pastry that you can enjoy for breakfast, for a snack. You could even save them for dessert. For this delicious keto recipe and so many more, please check out alldayidreamaboutfood.com.